But the main thing being used to fuel the coup scenario here is the firing of Secretary of Defense Mark Esper. I have an article here by Kelly Vlahos that goes through some interesting, details about Trump's secretaries of defense, and particularly Mark Esper's tenure. But to start off, the replacement for Mark Esper will be Christopher Miller, who is apparently a retired Special Forces officer. He worked closely with his old command in the military as a defense contractor and then joined the Trump administration as an aide in 2006. He served different roles in the White House, including director of National Counterterrorism Center. So apparently, he's a pretty mainstream guy from reading. It doesn't seem like he didn't put Jared Kushner or Mike Pompeo or somebody who you would think would be slotting the person in for a coup if it was that. So I think this was a policy dispute between Trump and Esper that led first to Esper drafting a letter of resignation. He was apparently going to get out before Trump fired him, but then Trump decided to fire him. But looking into the actual details of what happened with Mark Esper here and his time as Secretary of Defense, he's the third Trump Secretary of Defense. First was James Mad Dog Mattis, the former Marine general who resigned because Trump wanted to get out of Syria. Now, we could talk about how serious Trump was actually about that, because he ended up, even when he had personnel in place who seemed a little bit more willing to actually go through with withdrawing troops from Syria, Trump decided to stay. And then the second one was Patrick Shanahan. I don't think he was ever actually confirmed as Secretary of Defense. He stepped down after there was some like domestic problems that were exposed. I'm not sure the details on that, but I thought the real scandalous thing about this Patrick Shanahan guy was that he was a former Boeing executive and was agreeing to buy all these Boeing products as Secretary of Defense. Mark Esper took over. Not sure when. I think in 2019. I think it was earlier this year. Maybe it was late last year. Um, and he, promised to reform and stuff like that. But at the same time, pretty much kept things how they are. The main problem in the Pentagon, and when new leaders take over, what they talk about is cutting waste, fraud, and abuse and stuff like that. But rather, as Mandy Smithberger points out, Kelly Blahos has her quoted here saying that he undermined it, that is talking about the reforms, in part by pursuing efforts like trying to weaken revolving door laws. Revolving door laws are these regulations that are put in place to say that you can't retire from the military, go work on the Raytheon board collecting a six-figure salary for 4 years, and then go and become somewhere in the Pentagon as an official procuring weapons and stuff like that. You can't go between the Pentagon and civilian contractors that sell the weapons to the Pentagon. This creates too many conflicts of interest and creates a lot of waste and fraud and abuse. And so while Mark Esper, says, "Oh, I want to, cut down on that," him being a Raytheon lobbyist and then going forward with, deciding to weaken laws that would allow more of his former Raytheon colleagues to easily walk into the Pentagon and vice versa, it is not something that is going to improve the situation in the Pentagon. William Hartung points out that he spent a ton of money and continued wasting money on like the Pentagon's 1.7 trillion dollar new generation of nuclear weapons and the $1 trillion wasteful crappy F-35 project that of course doesn't fly right. I don't think they still really resolved all the issues on that plane, but yet Lockheed Martin is making, I think, near $100 million per plane still. So, I mean, this is, I think, kind of what you expect from a Secretary of Defense. What Mark Esper was. I mean, I guess he was pretty bad. I don't know if he was worse than anyone in particular, or if there was anyone who you would be like, oh yeah, I wish that guy was in place. But in this case, it seems like he's just kind of another part of the Washington swamp machine that carries on, making sure the very rich, wealthy people who run these defense contractors continue to cash in from this whole military industrial complex. Kelly Vlahos points out I guess, one brighter spot in Mark Esper's record is he was somewhat restrained on, the Insurrection Act and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, he did end up participating in a lot of the crackdown stuff and Trump's PR stunts. The other note you have from the Pentagon is that acting Pentagon policy chief, James Anderson. So this is a pretty high up and important role in the Pentagon. Resigned today after having issues with the White House, and that he is being replaced by this guy, um, Anthony Tala, I think, or Tata. And he's apparently said some pretty wild things in the past. And while this is a fairly important role in the Pentagon, I'm not sure how much, that this guy's going to be able to get done in 2 months. And I guess it'll be interesting to see now that his controversy has resurfaced if he'll stay in this role. All right, everybody, let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, Paloma Verde. Paloma Verde sells great CBD products. I personally like their soft gel tablets. I took one not too long before recording the show. With everything going on, it's sometimes hard to clear your head and get well focused. And sometimes the CBD helps me to do that. So I took an ester capsule today. I gotta say, it's making a big deal with being able to focus and get this podcast done. So no matter what's going on, overwhelmed with the completely, no matter what side you're on, either the election is being stolen from you and you're a cuck for not doing enough to go against it, or you're terrified of what the orange man's about to do. COVID is still terrifying people, and we have all this going on in the world. And so you need a way to try to help you relax. You try CBD. You can learn about that and other things CBD can do for you on the Paloma Verde website. That's palomaverdestore.com. Use the promo code PEACE for 25% off at checkout.